Hey everybody, welcome back to the Astrocartography playlist, and this will be a little bit different video from the rest of my channel. I'm actually doing an astrocartographer chat. I've invited two of my astrocartography colleagues here, both fantastic astrologers who happen to specialize in locational astrology as well. So we're just going to talk about, some of like our knowledge that we could drop on you guys, common questions we get, things like that, and then some of our own experiences online. So I have invited, like I said, two lovely ladies here. We've got Aubrey. She is an author. She's an astrologer who specializes in astrocartography, but also even like sensual astrology and things like that, like sexy astrology. So she's got some great books. And so she could talk more about that. And also Faith, and she's specializing in both astrocartography and like money astrology. So that's super interesting. And if you're a regular to the channel, you know I talk a lot about astrocartography. I also love mundane astrology, like global astrology and historical astrology and things like that. So we're going to have a lot to chat about. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. And we also have special guest Belvy, my little puppy. So if we hear little yips in the background, that'll be Yorkie Belvy. But great. Aubrey, tell us a little bit more about your work and what you do, and give us the details.
Sure. So I am an astrologer. I am based in Denver. My sort of two niches are, in fact, astrocartography and what I like to call erotic astrology.
Yeah.
I just released a book back in July called Stellar Sex, which is kind of like an introduction and yet a dive into your entire chart and how it kind of shows your erotic nature, right? Your turn ons, turns off kinks, your relationship style, your sex style, all of those things. I had a lot of fun writing it. I have gotten good feedback on it, which we love. But yeah, other than that, it is definitely astrocartography all the time. It's actually my most popular like service that I offer at this point. People are always coming for it. So I know this is a topic that people are really interested in. Actually also just submitted my manuscript on an astrocartography book. So I am excited to be here talking about this. Thank you so much for inviting me and having me on your channel.
Yay. Well, welcome. That sounds awesome. And Faith, give us the details.
Hello. So I am also an astrocartographer. So I've been doing this about 2 years now, but I've been studying astrology what feels like all my life. I love to travel or just get to know people from different cultures and to really like immerse myself in different just parts of life as I travel. So that was really important to me to kind of combine the two, I guess you could say. I also specialize in money readings or financial astrology. I believe that like in order to travel, you got to have money. So I was like, it makes sense to just do both. So that's what I kind of focus on is like, obviously as you study any type of astrology, you get to know yourself on a deeper level. But basically, my main goal for my work is to, for you to get to know yourself, get your money right, and then go travel and explore yourself in new places. So
I love that. That's really good. That's really. And wait, what are your big three, both of you? Aubrey, what are your big three?
I am a triple Libra.
Ooh.
That reaction. I actually have 5 Libra placements. So I'm like, the Libra overlord.
Yeah.
Awesome. And what are your big three, Faith?
I'm a Gemini sun, a Taurus moon, and a Leo rising.
Nice. And I'm Sagittarius rising, Capricorn sun, and Gemini moon. So Faith and I will be chatty here. Cool. Well, before we get to the first question, I'll just say for you guys a little intro of myself too. I didn't really believe in astrology because I'd only heard of sun signs, and about 15 or so years ago, I finally got a reading from somebody, and my mind was blown, and I just like drove straight to the bookstore. It was back in the days when we like met in person. I've been studying astrology every day since, but what really got me was the astrocartography as well, because the guy I was actually getting a reading from in New York was wanting to learn more about it, and I had already traveled so much. He was like, "Oh, I'll do a whole nother free session with you on astrocartography if we can go through your map and you can tell me your experiences on different lines." So I was like hooked because I was basically born asking, "Where's my passport?" Like I'm the first person in my family to get a passport, and I was just like, my first trip abroad by myself. I was with a group, but not my parents. Was when I was 14,
Oh,
and I
wow.
went to the Uranus IC line. I later found out, and it really did like shake my foundations, and it changed the course of my life. So I currently live in Tbilisi, Georgia, as my home base, and I travel about half the year. So this is my home base, and yeah, and Bellevue, my bestie over there, is learning to be a travel dog. So it's cool. All right, so let's start with some questions. I kind of wanted to ask you guys because I get some of the same questions a lot, like from clients or people on social media, stuff like that. What are some common questions that you guys get all the time?
Faith, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. The number one question that I get, which is kind of like I'm sure we all get this, is like, oh, where is my best place? And of course, I have to go through the discussion of, it depends on what you're looking for or what's your goal of traveling or relocating, et cetera, et cetera. Another one would be, is the world going to end on a Saturn line or a Pluto line? Or vice versa, like, where's my clients sometimes come with the assumption of like, oh, I'm going straight to my Venus line or my Jupiter line. But, obviously trying to get to know what they want and what they need versus just generic, let's just go to this line because I heard it on TikTok.
Yeah, exactly.
I completely agree with that. People definitely, everyone wants to know where their Venus line is, right? I
Mm,
always kind of joke that like the two things people want to or ask about the most in readings are love and money,
Yeah.
right?
mm,
And so yeah, people are either like, "Where's my Venus line? My love life sucks. I want to go meet somebody," and or they want to know like, "Where's the best place for like my business or my career?" Right? So yeah, I completely agree with that. And then the other comment that I get from people, a comment, not a question, from people is like, "Oh, my lines are all out in the middle of the ocean."
Yes.
oh yeah.
Yes. That's a very common one. So, like, what do we say in that case, to people? Yeah, I have my little things that I say, but what do you guys generally tell people when all their good lines are in the ocean?
I'll let you
Faith.
go first this
Oh,
time.
okay, okay. So I think for me, tell people like there's a lot more going on in the astro map than what a lot of the kind of like free programs online will show you. We have like our aspect lines, which sort of make your map like explode in color, right? And then we also have the parents. So I actually tell people like there's a bunch of places that you can go around the world, and to have some kind of activation in your chart and in your life. I think it's actually more rare to find a spot where there's nothing going on. So yeah, I usually tell people like, no, I promise there are places you can go, right? So yeah.
Especially when, yeah, you turn
I
on all the layers and they start seeing, usually the client will just like gasp. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know that all that was
Yeah,
going
exactly.
on. What were you going to say, Faith?
I was gonna say I agree. And you're right. Like sometimes if you show them everything that pops up, they do get a bit overwhelmed. But back to what Aubrey was saying as well, like you're right. Like there's more than just the basic astrocartography lines. You can look at the parens, you can look at the aspect lines, the midpoint lines. All of these things add different sprinkles onto the cake. So I agree. And people forget about the relocated charts, man, because that is like I feel like that's really getting into the story.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
We should definitely. I think I read somewhere on your threads. We're all on threads. This is where we chat astrology a lot about using asteroids. So, do you use asteroids, Faith, when you do astrophotography?
Yes. I don't do it for every reading like standard, but it just depends on what the person is looking for. Like, I recently had a reading where a woman went to a city and she said, I just felt rage. I couldn't explain it. And I just felt rage. And I was like, you were on a Lilith ascendant line. So let's talk about it. So it depends, especially I also like to consider where my client is at when it comes to astrology. Like if they're super, super new, it's like, girl, you barely know what the houses mean, the aspects. I don't want to overwhelm you. So it just depends.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree with that. I was actually going to ask both of you about that because obviously you can go so deep and nuanced and like complex with this. But at least in my experience, the people that are coming to me are usually pretty new, right? Like they're new, certainly to astrocartography. They may also kind of be new to astrology in general. So I don't ever feel like I go that deep with people, like once I start saying like, oh, relocation chart, then they kind of glaze over and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? So I feel like I do Chiron lines, right? So sometimes I'll end up talking to people about Chiron, but I don't usually get into anything outside of kind of like the most fundamental parts of astrocartography. Okay.
The same for me. Yeah, I use dashboards for myself or if I'm looking around, but like unless the client kind of requests it, or if they're an advanced astrologer, and there's not a lot I have to explain to them, then we'll be able to like kick into more lines and all kinds of things. But what I do use also is a European astrologer turned me onto it a few years ago, and he passed away suddenly last year, so I couldn't ask him any more questions about it. But I started testing it out a couple years or about 3 years ago, and then this year I started actually incorporating it into readings. Is the vertex. So the vertex, when it conjuncts the angles, or there's only a couple, I think, 2 software programs that'll show you when it conjuncts planets by 1 degree as well. And those have been extremely interesting as far as like fated experiences and fated encounters and fated kind of relationships and things like that. I've seen them be really, really powerful. So I was super grateful that that guy told me about that during a conversation once. So I had those as well. And the midpoints, like you mentioned, as well. But I usually just do sun and moon, again, not to like get too crazy with it and make everybody see the eyes glaze over. They're like, I feel like I'm going to cry. It's because it's a lot. Cool. Okay, so we got that. And then maybe since we touched on it, before I go to the next question, we should talk about relocated charts, because I like to call the astrocartography map like the geography cheat sheet to angularity in the relocated charts. And I can see everyone in the audience's eyes glaze over right now, too, of like, what does that mean? So the angles, the ascendant, midheaven, descendant, and IC, when you're making, a planet conjunct one of those angles, I kind of think of it as like plugging it into the power outlet of the zodiac and it's getting supercharged. And all the places that shows up is on the map. That's what we're looking at. Is there other things that you look for? What are your like favorite little tricks with relocated charts when you're looking for a new location for somebody based on their goals?
Yeah, I'm mainly definitely looking at, where are your planets, especially, what the goal is related to or the planet that's related to that goal. I'm looking, okay, what house does it fall in? Is it an angular house? Is it a succinent house? Is it, my mind is blanking, but yeah, glitching, right? So where is it falling? That's my main thing. Obviously, as you just said, the angles as well. But I'm also just thinking about, what does that look like? And I really like to see the story within birth charts in general. So I'm always like, okay, let's look at this new potential. So, but what about you, Aubrey?
Honestly, I really agree with you, Faith. I like same thing, right? Same approach. What you said in the beginning, where you really like to clarify with people, like, what's the goal, right? What is it that you're really looking for? And depending on that, of course, then I honestly feel like I just default to those places where it's like the planet is on, like, like, oh, I want to buy a home, right? Or I'm looking for a place that feels like home, right? Then of course we're going to look for like the IC. And then, you pull the relocation chart and it's like, well, what else is happening, right? Alongside this line. So yeah, I would say I don't have like a one size fits all answer to that question. I think it's just really subjective based on what someone wants.
Because some people like, I recently had a young person wants to get famous, or there's somebody who wants to retire or somebody who wants to plan a honeymoon. Like there's such different topics that, it can't be a one size. But one thing I love as like a funny little thing that I noticed in my relocated chart. So well before I even knew about astrology or particularly not astrocartography, I've been going to the same place in France since I was like 19 years old every year. And like, even if it's just like for a couple of days, I fit it into like my world to go there because I feel so interesting and good there. Like, I just feel like it's a really homey place. But it's also like very vibrant and all the other satirizing things I like. And so, but I finally realized one day that in my relocated charts, it's exactly mirror image of my birth chart in that location.
Oh my
So
gosh.
yeah, I realized that I was like, like, and then I just started incorporating that to clients when I look for their relocated chart. I kind of always just check where their mirror image is, and usually they'll tell me it's a place they're super drawn to or have been to a bunch of times, or that they've always wanted to go or something. And it's very kind of cool because you
I'm
get
gonna
to,
try that trick.
yeah, you get to almost like see the other side of yourself. So for me, like I have a Moon Venus opposition in the first and seventh, which is kind of gnarly. And so like, but in that location, like I'll suddenly get these like realizations of like what I assumed was true about something or whatever isn't true. Like I can see the other person's side a lot easier. Yeah, so that's one of my little favorite kind of moves to check out because yeah, it's been really effective for me. Um, okay, I'm going to go to the next question. What are like any things that you wish people knew about astrocartography? You mentioned TikTok. Like, there's a lot of really watered down information about it. Or any pet peeves when you hear people say something, like if something annoys you. What kind of things do you think you would just share? Like, we maybe already covered a lot of it because we're talking about how complex it is and nuanced and things. But anything that comes to mind?
Aubrey, I'll let you go first. Sorry.
Honestly, my experience is that people just don't really know that much about astrocartography, like, period. Right? Like, everyone loves to travel, right? So there is that like curiosity, and once they hear about it, they're like, oh, I want to know where like the best locations are for me, and all of that. And yeah, I think there's something with like pop astrology takes on the internet that make these like sweeping generalizations and really like boiling things down into, I mean, like, you can't generalize with astrology, right? Like, it's so nuanced, whether it's your birth chart, your astro map, I mean, all of it, right? Like, you can't, there's no one size fits all. And so I think that is maybe like a misconception that I don't enjoy. Like, yeah, your Venus line is going to be pretty, but depending on like the, quality of your Venus, you have a day chart, you have a night chart, like, it's going to bring different things forward, right? Same thing with Jupiter, right? Like, I think people just hear those two planets and they're just like, yes, right. Right. And it's like, I think there's things that we can enjoy at all of them, no matter what your chart is doing. However, doesn't automatically make Venus the best place to be, or Jupiter the best place to be, or even Saturn the worst place to be, right? Like, everybody's always like, ugh, Saturn. And I'm like, well, not
Actually,
necessarily, right? Faith, what about you?
So that used to be my number one. And I think as AI and all of these new apps for astrocartography are coming out, that is now my number one. I'm seeing more and more of that. They're like, yeah, just ask ChatGPT. Oh God, why?
An idea, yeah.
So now it's, I'm really pushing for people to understand that these softwares, they're great, but if it's not a trusted and vetted astrological software, it's still not going to give you the best outcome. I mean, even on the like most softwares that we use, they give you a little breakdown, but most of the time that's not even accurate. Like, you really have to have experience and understanding and know how to really put all of this together. So I think that's my number one. And to go with that, just the disregard for the angles. Like, they just see the lines and they're like, yeah, I'm just gonna go here. But it's like you're talking about you want money, but you're going to a Jupiter IC line. Like, if you're investing in a lot of real estate, sure,
real estate, exactly.
But so that would be my two.
Yeah, and that's true too, because it's also, like you mentioned, Aubrey, the quality, and we actually did have a question that came in threads yesterday about that. Like, what if you have, a Venus in fall or a detriment or something? Does that affect it? And my answer is yes, it totally does. Or if you have, like, I do an opposition or, a conjunction or something, it's going to come up for you in that location like never before, because it's supercharged because it's on one of the angles. So, like, it's not always like rainbows and unicorns or whatever.
No, like, to your point, I have Venus in Scorpio, right? And it's conjunct Pluto. It's not living its best life, right? It also happens to be my chart ruler. It also happens to be the ruler of my nativity, right? Like, so like I have things that, and I have a night chart, right? So like Venus is on my team,
Yeah.
right? So like there are certain things that are like helping, like it also has mutual reception with my Mars, right? So like there's things that help it, that make my experience under Venus lines maybe different than what you would typically expect with the Scorpio Venus.
Yeah.
However, I'm also not having the experience under Venus line that like a Libra Venus or a Taurus Venus would.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yes. And like you say, the house placement, like everything else. So it's like your own Rubik's Cube, and ChatGPT is never going to get that. And by the way, ChatGPT has never traveled either. So it doesn't understand, but yeah, I forgot about that. That would have been on my pet peeve list for sure.
Same. No, same. That was such a good answer, Faith. Like, nailed it.
Because I saw somebody even online the other day like post, "Oh, I moved to this new city because ChatGPT told me I had good astrocartography there," and she's like, "But I don't really like it," and I was just like, because like you said, it doesn't synthesize. Even the software, like you say, it's not synthesizing the information. It's one by one by one by one, each thing without putting it all together. So, yeah, definitely. Talk to an expert if you can afford it or something, or read Aubrey's book that's coming out, or Faith's ebook, or I'm actually working on a handbook as well. So yeah, just or get a reading if you can, because it's
the resources are out there.
Yeah,
definitely
for sure. Yeah, it's a big choice to make, and I take a lot of like responsibility on my shoulders. I feel like I really want to do a good job when I'm reading somebody's chart and kind of really discuss with them what they're looking for, because you're really advising somebody on a pretty major life decision if they're relocating. It's kind of a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. Okay, so those were good ones. What are some memorable experiences on your own lines? You have like some story time examples that you could give us? Anybody?
Okay, Faith, you're up.
So I've never actually told this story, but I had a pretty major breakup after leaving my Sun MC line, which I was not expecting that. But it's just this aspect of like, with the Sun MC line, they're like, oh, fame and this, that, and the third. But for me, it was the experience of like I was hiding from myself. And that's just something that you don't do. You don't hide anything on the Sun line, first of all, but especially like it was this idea of like 10th house energy where it's like, okay, what legacy am I really leaving behind? Like, do I really want to like sustain this long term? So I left feeling great, but it was just like, yeah, no. It was a coming home to myself kind of energy.
Yeah.
So it was pretty good.
Well, a lot of people would even think of the career with the 10th house and MC and stuff, but it can also be social standing. So it can be a marriage or a change of your social status. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like my social standing was not. It was like pretty much I was letting the relationship dictate like where I lived, where I moved, like how I was moving. I had just got the job that I wanted, but it was like, this is not me. This is not my standard. So yeah.
Yeah, the sun wants the authentic to shine through for sure.
Yeah. So that was fun.
Wow. How about you, Aubrey? Any good stories?
I think for me, probably, I mean, I have all kinds of stories, right? But so my part of my family lives in Wichita. So I visit there regularly, obviously. And it, among other things, is a Neptune IC line for me.
Yeah.
And I get sick every single time I visit this line. I also happen to have Pluto trine the midheaven there, and like I love that part of the energy like so much. But I cannot ignore this Neptune influence. And I don't know what y'all think about Neptune lines. I would love to hear it. But for me, there's always that kind of like lack of clarity, right? That's like, people aren't seeing things clearly. Maybe you're not seeing things clearly, which I will say also that Neptune IC line, I'm the sleepiest I've ever been underneath that line.
Yep.
Oh, you just unlocked something for me.
Well, but like I also tell people like Neptune is porous. Right. And so like we kind of become porous underneath Neptune lines, and we therefore become more susceptible. Right. Yep. So like illness, the influence of substances of all kinds, right? Whether it's like illicit or prescription or supplements or whatever. And I get sick every single, like without fail, I get sick going to see my family in Wichita. And I'll never forget one time I went out there for Christmas, and it was like we are in the thick of like the pandemic, quarantine off and on, like, you know what I mean? And so it happened to be off at this time, and I went out there and I showed up, and my sister, she comes to greet me, and she is sick, like visibly sick, all right, as hell. And I was like, Moira, I'm like, why would you not tell me that you're sick, before I come out here? And she's like, oh, I didn't even think about it. I was like, hello? Like, we're dealing with COVID. Like, what do you mean you didn't think about it? Right. And so, whatever, we're doing Christmas. I'm supposed to go home. But then, like, the day before I was supposed to leave, my mom gets sick, and I'm staying with her. And I'm like, okay, well, you better go get tested for COVID. And it was like at the time where you had to wait like 24 to 48 hours to actually like get the results back.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I guess I'm staying here for like another day at least, until you find the results of your COVID test. And like her and my sister were like, oh, like, yeah, we should go to Costco and get these things and blah, blah. I was like, no, you're supposed to be isolating. Like, you potentially have this. So Neptune is just like, everyone's in La La Land. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
That's my story.
Well, I like how yours not only involved the Neptune stuff, but also your family. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've actually lived on a number of my lines. In fact, I lived in Norway for a while, but maybe like 20, how old's my son? 24 years ago, because I had my son while I was there. And it had like a crossing of like 6 planets up there, and one of those like polar region, not the main big tangly one, but like a really major crossing up there. And absolutely like 180'd my life in a really good way. The marriage ended, but everything improved. But also like just worldview opening, all kinds of stuff happened there. Yeah, and so those lines can like be really big catalysts because, like I say, they're so powerful. But little fun fact, that husband, my children's father, he's Puerto Rican descent, and I have my Venus MC line going right through Puerto Rico. And he was born because his dad was in the army, and there was an army base in France in the city called Orleans, France, just south of Paris. And my Venus descending line goes smack through Orleans, France. And so it's super funny. Like, and then even like my next major relationship after that, I checked my Juno lines. We were talking about asteroids, and he used to go work in Antarctica for like 25 years every year, every like season. And he's a climate researcher. And I had, because speaking of things all in the ocean or unusable places or whatever, my Juno descending goes right through McMurdo Station in Antarctica, where he would go work every year. Like, it was uncanny. Like, those kind of things could just be so uncanny sometimes. So even like places, even if I hadn't been there, you could draw people in from those places too. That's
okay, this is such a good example. No, this is such a good example because to Faith's point, it absolutely costs money to travel, right? And that's not something that is always super accessible to people, right? And so I always like to kind of bring this up whenever I'm talking about astrocartography. It's like, well, you can still experience the influence of your lines without physically being there. Right. And so what I like to point to a lot of times is like, if you were to go back and look, you probably have at least one partner that hails from like one of your Venus lines, for example.
Yeah.
Right.
Or kind of any descending line. I see a lot of people meet partners on just other descending lines too. Yeah.
Yeah. My best friend, she is always attracting men from her Pluto descendant line, and I'm like, girl, please.
She's like,
I'm like, no shade towards, I'm sure he's a good man, but I can tell you this is going to require work.
Yeah. Don't let him control you.
Yeah. Maybe in the bedroom, but like not out of the bedroom.
Yeah, the stories are, and I have like where I was telling you where my chart mirrors, I have that Venus descending, and I also have a Jupiter IC. They actually cross near there. And I have had like the funniest, like craziest things that, like, even when I'm having like a bad luck day, it kind of just turns to a good thing. That's one theme I noticed, because I'm a Jupiter ruled chart. And So besides the overspending and overdoing and overestimating everything that you do on those lines, it could just be like this little strokes of luck and then like improved home life and stuff. Yeah, I had like the last time I was there, I rented an Airbnb for like 2 months, right on that Jupiter Sea. And the day I checked in, I had ordered a package, like an Amazon thing. And so because I'm in Georgia, so like some things I can't get. So I like had pre-ordered it to that address. So they came and brought it like right after I checked in. The host was super nice. It was one of the few times I ever actually met the host, and she had coffee and she was super nice French lady. And she left to drive back to her home city that was 2 hours away. And I promptly went out to go like put the box in recycling and forgot to bring the key with me and locked myself out of the apartment building like instantly, like within an hour of being in this place. And I was like, but she had already left. And so I was like, okay, let's see. I'll just try all the neighbors, like buzzing all the neighbors. It was one of those long weekends in France. And you know what French people do? They all go out for some weekend away.
They're gone.
There was
Yes.
only 4 or 5 apartments in the building, and they were all gone. Like the window shutters closed, everything. And so I finally called her and I'm like, I'm so sorry. I had this like really dumb moment and the door shut behind me and I realized I didn't have the key. And she's like, oh no, I'm all the way back to Nantes, like 2 hours away. And then, anyway, long story long, she had realized all of a sudden, like I was like, well, at least I have my phone on me. I had it in my pocket. So you can use Apple Pay. I was like, I'm going to go have dinner and just see if some stroke of luck happens. Turns out she remembered that she had actually given a key to a friend like 3 years before and totally forgotten about it. And then, so she called that friend and the friend had just come to a restaurant, but she's like, yeah, I'll run home and get it. And so she ended up being like 2 restaurants down from me on the same street. And
Perfect.
and not only do I go collect the key, but then her and her whole group of French friends were like, come stay with us, have a drink, da, da, da. They ended up becoming my whole friend group the entire time. I got invited to housewarming parties. We did they were like the cool kids of the whole town. Like they knew everyone. It was insane. Like I just had the best time because I left myself out. And that's a Jupiter IC story for you.
Yeah,
Yeah. But there's lots. Oh, very cool. And I'm always like a little hesitant to share my stories like on socials or whatever, just because that thing where like everybody thinks they're gonna have the exact same experience. But I just happen to have a happy Jupiter and like, you know, have a very gnarly Pluto square the sun. So my sun lines aren't always as fun. And certainly not the Pluto, but yeah. Yeah, it can be really different depending on somebody's chart and all the things we talked about.
Totally, right? And like something I like to tell people a lot of times too when I'm giving them readings is I'm like, kind of depends on like your relationship to this planet. Right? Like, yes, of course we can factor in the chart, but like we also have our own free will and can do plenty of work, you know, and remediation around planets and things like that. In my own example, I have a Pluto ascendant line that runs through Puerto Rico. And I was very nervous to go there. Okay. I was like, I'm not sure about this, you know. But for me personally, I think because like my chart roller is conjunct Pluto and it's all in Scorpio, and like I think I just have had plenty of opportunities to do a lot of work with Pluto, right? So, and also there's that part of me that like likes the intensity and the passion and like, you know what I mean? And so, but I was still nervous. I was like, I don't know about this, you know, we'll see how it is. And it just happened to be a stop on this cruise that my whole family was on last December. And so we went to San Juan and spent the day there. Which is direct, could not be more underneath that Pluto line. Okay. And it ended up being my favorite stop on the cruise. Like I had a brilliant day being in San Juan. Like it was so like beautiful, so much fun. I actually wanted to spend more time there than I was allowed to. Like once we went into like old San Juan, I was like, yeah, this is like really like cool here. And I wanted to spend so much more time exploring, but it totally caught me off guard because I was like, nope, I'm going to go there. I'm going to have this really intense day. It's maybe like not going to be that fun, not going to be that cute, whatever. And it was like the complete opposite of that. So I was shocked.
Yeah, sometimes those short trips on Pluto can be just like a fun, powerful experience, and it doesn't have to be like a dark, intense thing. Yeah. Or sometimes it's like
Totally.
mixed. You know, it's super intense and like, but it's fun. And then all of a sudden you'll have like a
Mhm,
power struggle with the person
mhm.
you're traveling with or something. But like, well, I think that maybe that's just me. Because again, I have that square. But
Yeah.
um, so funny.
I mean, you brought up a good point though. It just depends on where your Pluto placement is, and we've even talked about that on Threads. Like my viewpoint of Pluto is slightly biased because I have an angular Pluto. Like my Pluto
Yes.
is in my fourth house
That's
near
the fourth
my
house,
IC,
yeah.
so I'm
Yeah.
like, it'll be fine, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I actually I noticed that with particularly Pluto, people who already have it conjunct one of their angles in their birth chart will tend to handle the
Mhm,
Pluto better, just because they're already just used to
definitely.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or maybe like Aubrey's case where there's like a special little configuration too. That's interesting. You brought up the cruise ship, and it reminded me of something. Speaking of people's lines being out in the ocean, besides the fact that you could just zoom in, and there are a lot more islands out there that you because it just looks like
Oh,
blue
yeah.
water. The day I
Yeah.
realized that my Jupiter MC isn't just in the ocean; it runs right through Fiji. Like, was a good day, and I
On
actually
your way.
yes, and I got a work trip. I used to work in film and TV, and I would do commercials and stuff sometimes in between, like films and things like that. But I got a commercial with an airline. They flew me there, and I was staying in like 5-star resorts the whole time because we were actually shooting the resorts. I didn't pay a penny to go there. Had like the most amazing, like diving, like all kinds of crazy stuff. It was really, really cool. So yeah, zoom in is one tip, and then the other one is I've
Wow.
actually also had multiple clients have different successes in the ocean from like cruise lines. So like
Mm,
artists selling all their artwork to help decorate the rooms. People getting like design gigs. I also had like people working in shipping and they'll cross
mm.
their lines with their shipping like company that they own and stuff. So the ocean isn't totally like a no-go too.
That's
So
true.
people can think about that as another little way to mitigate the lines being in the ocean. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Fun. Maybe I will tell one more line story. If you have any more, feel free to tell them because I think people like hearing those. And then we'll go to another question from Threads yesterday. Was I like to just like roll the dice usually. I'll go to any line. Like you were saying you're like nervous, but you're still going. And I had a Mars Uranus crossing, which I was like, I'll be careful about accidents or things like that.
Mhm.
Day one, I was walking through the city, just crossing the street, broke my ankle.
No.
And I knew that could happen. And I also, in that relocated chart, the Uranus in the 6th house. So I was like, I kind of just asked for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could go either way. Sometimes it's not as fun. But it actually was totally interesting because it was like, I got to see their healthcare system, and like it was like the people I was working with were all super sweet and ended up be like hanging out with me in the waiting room and all this. So it just ended up being like an interesting experience in itself. But yeah, I don't recommend breaking your ankle. It's not super fun. So yeah, if they're telling you something like Mars Uranus can be a bit accident prone or like sudden things or
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah, stuff like that. But I do have had like MMA fighters or people who do like what's that Thai boxing. Um,
More.
Muay Thai, yeah, and they love going to like a Pluto Mars crossing, and they'll like
Oh,
hold
yeah.
Mm.
competitions and
Well,
stuff because they're using the violence. Like,
yeah.
yeah, so it could go all kinds of ways. Cool. And then
Wow,
somebody
that's
on
very.
Threads yesterday also asked, like, have you heard stories of people going to? And I guess I kind of just told one story of somebody going to a line and totally regretting it, or have you been to a line and then totally regretted it or something? Um, I've had
Okay.
definitely clients who are like, "Why do I feel so isolated and alone?" I'm like, "You're on a Saturn IC." Like, I call that one the hermit line.
Yeah. I don't say that I'd regret it per se, but like I have had moments like on my Chiron line where I'm like, oh man, like I noticed I was on a Chiron descendant line when I went to Japan. A
Mm,
Saturn ascendant line and a Chiron descendant line. So it's like when I'm getting into spats with my friends or my partner, I'm like, ugh. But I wasn't like, oh my God, I'll never go back. Like, no, I'm planning a
yeah.
trip now to go back.
Yeah,
So it's just obviously when you have that, awareness, you can go prepared per se. And I guess that's the reason why we're here. That's why we do our work. So same thing. I mean, I have had clients where they regret living on a Saturn line or a Pluto line or Chiron line, but I think it just depends on the person and what they're willing to transmute and work on.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I love how you said that, because it's like we still can make choices. Like we maybe are confronted with difficult energy, whether it's astrocartography or just your chart in general, or a life like outside of the astrology realm. Like it happens, but we are always free, right, to take action. To Kim's point, I live underneath the Saturn IC line, right? And I have lived underneath my Saturn IC line my entire life. And yes, there have been difficulties. And, I think at this, and Saturn does the most in my chart, y'all. Saturn does the most in my chart. But there have been times where I've been like, God, I got to get out of here. I can't live underneath this line anymore. It's so hard, blah, blah, blah. But I recently actually feel like I have come out the other side of that, and I'm just like, nope, like this is home, and I like it, and it's the energy I'm used to. But I am definitely, I mean, my astrocartography where I live is complicated, okay, but there is absolutely that like hermit part of me that's just like, no, this is what I like. This is how I am, like
hunker down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like sometimes you'll go to one place when you're younger, and then you'll go there later when you're older, especially if you're aware of it, and you can totally work with the energy. Like my theory is just like use the energy. You're diving into a pool of it. You got to use it. Otherwise, it's just going to drown you or like come at you from external circumstances. But like I used to hate going to my moon ascending line because remember I have hard aspects to the moon. So it was just like I felt overwhelmed emotionally. I felt like kind of grouchy. Like I just didn't like the place, and it happens to run right through like beautiful parts of Italy and Rome, like smack through Rome. And I did not like Italy like the first several times I went, and then I went later in life, and I had done a lot of like shadow work and working on emotional stuff and like things like that. And now I love it. Like I just went there in like March, and I was just like, oh my god, I can't believe I hated this place before. And so the energy itself can contribute so much, and like different stages of life and things like that too. Or if maybe after a Saturn return, you experience the Saturn a lot differently than before. Yeah.
Well, certainly. I mean, certainly. I mean, Saturn just quickly, it squares my Mars, it squares my sun, it's directly opposite Jupiter, which also squares my sun and Mars, right? So it's really intense T-square going on. I actually have two of them, but we don't have to talk about that. So it's like, yes, I live underneath my Saturn IC line. However, I also live underneath my sun ascendant line, my Mars ascendant line, and my moon ascendant line. I get a lot going on. But yeah, I think obviously as you mature, like Saturn gets easier. Even though Saturn is technically the most difficult planet in my chart. But at this point in my life, like I love Saturn. I love Capricorn energy. I'm like, give me more. Thank you very much. But Saturn is definitely like that line that people are like, no. Like no,
Tell me, how are your teeth? The main thing I've heard from clients is like major dental issues, particularly the Saturn MC, but major like dental surgeries or things like that. Living a long time on a Saturn line, are your teeth okay?
So I have really strong teeth.
Okay.
I have Saturn in domicile, right? But I knock on wood, okay? But like I've never broken a bone. Like, my teeth are really strong. Do I have gum issues? Yes. Teeth issues? No. So I mean, maybe that still counts, gum issues.
Choose home.
But like
super interesting. Okay, so I guess kind of last question for you. What do you prefer to call the technique we've been talking about? Do you have like idea like because I would like to start a campaign to start calling it another thing, but go ahead, Faith. What do you call it?
I like to use it like all the terms interchangeably. So locational astrology, which I try to emphasize, like it's just not astrocartography when I say locational astrology. But I like the astro mapping concept mainly when I know that I'm not going to be really touching on the relocated charts because I feel like that's where it kind of gets confusing. But I try to emphasize with astrocartography, we're looking at the map as well as the relocated charts. But I'll interchange them, but just make sure people understand like what they really mean, basically.
Yeah. Any preferences? Yeah.
I think I just generally say astrocartography, right? Or I'll say like the global horoscope.
Yeah.
I like the global horoscope. That I will say that's like a term where I'm like, okay, like that one hits for me. Sometimes I'll say like the astro map. Right. I have tried to be like, locational astrology, but again, people kind of like glaze over and they don't know what that means. And I think this is just like my Virgo Mercury, y'all. But I'm a person that's like, just say the plain and simple language that makes people understand.
Yeah.
Right. So when people are like locational astrology, I'm like, okay, astrocartography.
Yeah.
Right. So what about you?
Well, like astromap feels approachable and And so there are some people also call it. I have one client who she always calls it astrocartology, and because it's like astrology, like the mixing the two or whatever. Yeah, I think it's almost like lofty or something. I've even had students in workshops. They're like, "Why do we have to call it astrocartography?" I'm like, "You don't have to. You can call it whatever you want." In fact, I think Jim Lewis came up with that because there's actually everyone credits him with inventing astrocartography. Not true, but there was actually even a company out of Chicago already doing astro mapping, and they called it locality astrology, and they were doing maps. So he just had to come up with a brand. So it's really just like calling it Kleenex versus like tissue or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my opinion, I don't know, maybe I'm full of crap, but like that's how I view it. But yeah, people are like, "What is astrocartology?" Like tology, and then they said, "I'm like, no." So yeah, I like astro mapping. Because it also then you can include local space and you can do the all that kind of stuff.
The whole nine.
It's all popular online to call it astrocartography. So fighting a losing battle here. Very cool. What's that?
I said it could change as we like coin different things. I'm really thinking about this global horoscope.
I like global horoscope. Global horoscope for sure. That's a really yeah, awesome. So any other things that you want to add in, any tidbits? And then also tell us where people can find you, because it's my channel, but if they vibe with one of you, like they should book a reading with you guys. So tell us any last tidbits of wisdom.
Go Faith, because I want to follow you after this.
Okay. You can find me on all social media platforms at Faith Grace Inspires. And yeah, just or www.faithgraceinspires.com.
Cool. I'll put it up on the screen. Go ahead, Aubrey. Where can people find you?
Okay. So I'm gonna be honest. I only do like Instagram and Threads. I'm also on Substack, I guess, but like I bless everybody's heart that does video content. This is the extent of my video content right here. Like someone asked me to come on and I'm doing it and that's it. So Instagram and Threads at Aubrey, the letter C, how to shell. Yeah. And that is the same on Instagram and Threads. Obviously, it's the same on Substack. And those are honestly like the easiest ways to connect with me. I do have a website. It's my old business name. I'm working on migrating things over, but that is www.graveyardroses.com. And you can buy the books and the deck and the book of reading and the whole thing, just like everybody else.
Awesome. I'll put links in the description as well for YouTube viewers. They can click on it as well. That's great. Excellent. And of course, everyone can also visit my website, kimmout.com, and there's like interpretations for every line. There's all kinds of like learning stuff for free, or you can book a reading. Yeah. This is super fun. I am super glad that you guys were able to do it. And thanks for sharing your wisdom with us.
Thanks for having us on. This has been so much fun.
We'll see you all later.